After the discovery of the fundamental particles, that is electrons, protons and the neutrons, the question come to our mind is what should be the model of an atom, or so called the structure of an atom. So to begin with, the structure of the atom or the inner structure of the atom, the first thing that comes to our mind is the experiment carried out by Rutherford, which is commonly known as alpha scattering of gold foil. So in this experiment, he took a thin metal foil made up of gold. So this is the circular portion. This represents a thin metal foil. Now this thin metal foil is made to strike by alpha particles, and the alpha particles are nothing but the positively charged helium nucleus. That means this metal foil is being struck by a positively charged alpha particle. Now in this particular experiment, he chose gold, or we can take any heavy metal. Now why we take heavy metal is this alpha particle is a heavier particle, atomic number 2, mass number 4. Since alpha particle being a heavier particle, we need to take a heavier metal so that the inner portion of the metal, which consists of the positively charged, should contain heavier mass, so that this alpha particle can be deflected. If we use lighter elements like sodium, potassium, metal and aluminum, then these lighter metals, though they contain nucleus, but the nucleus is not as heavy as that of the heavier metals. So for lighter metals, since the nucleus being not heavy, these alpha particles being much heavier can easily pass through without much deflection. So just to avoid this, we take this heavier metal which consists of heavier nucleus, so that the alpha particles can be easily observed to undergo deflection. Now this is behind this screen. So we have a screen, because we have to observe this deflected alpha particle. This is screen. Now this screen is zinc sulfide coated screen. Now we have to observe the alpha particles. Now when this alpha particle strikes the zinc sulfide coated screen, some glow is produced. So the moment glow is produced, we can say that some alpha particles might have strike at that particular point. So that is what I call as scintillations. Means the glow produced by the strike of these alpha particles on the zinc sulfide coated screen, which is placed behind this telescope. So from this we observe the following observations. So the observations from this alpha particle experiment. Now the first observation is, when this thin metal foil is struck by alpha particles, he observed that most of the alpha particle pass through the metal foil without any deflection. So the first is, most of the alpha particles pass through without deflection. So now look at this. These are alpha particles which is passing through the metal foil without any deflection. Means there is no change in the direction of the movement of the alpha particles. Same, look at this. So now the question is, though we have this observation from this globe produced behind this screen, we say that most of the alpha particles that was targeted to the thin metal foil were passed through the metal foil without any deflection in its normal pathway. Now, the inference he drew from this observation. So, though we have an observation, let me also give you the inference. So, from the first observation, he drew this conclusion or inference that since most of the alpha particles were passed through without any deflection, the space inside the atom is mostly unoccupied. That means, if suppose look at it, these alpha particles are heavy particles, which is the positively charged heavy particles. Now these heavy particles passing through this metal foil without any deflection means there is no any particle during this pathway. अगर ये pathway में कुछ strike substance रहता तो ये strike करके path change कर जाता. Now since most of these particles passing through this metal foil without any deflection, so we come to the conclusion that the space inside the atom is mostly unoccupied or empty space. Most space inside an atom is empty, that is unoccupied. Means majority of the portion inside this atom is unoccupied. Because of this, the alpha particles were passing through the foil without any deflection. So this was one of the points which differs from Bohr's model. So where Bohr's model says there was a uniform distribution of the mass inside the atom, whereas Rutherford's experiment says since alpha particles were passing through the metal foil without any deflection, so most of the space inside an atom is unoccupied, empty. Then the second observation he made from this alpha particle is few alpha particles were found to deflect from its normal pathway by some angle. So now this is the alpha particle which is being struck. Now these alpha particles, after reaching this point, there is a deflection from its normal pathway. Similarly, look at this. This alpha particle is again deflecting by certain angle theta. Say, look at this. So these alpha particles are found to deflect by some angle theta. So there are few alpha particles which is found to deflect from its normal pathway. So the second observation is few alpha particles were deflected from its normal pathway. So most of the alpha particles were found to be undeflected, and there was few alpha particles which were found to deflect from its normal pathway. Now how we come to the conclusion that some alpha particles were found to deflect? Because at this particular portion there is no glow or a scintillation produced at this zinc sulfide coated, but there are some alpha particles that were found to produce glow at this end. So from the point of glow, we say that since there is no alpha particle, so this alpha particles might have come from this deflected portion. So since few alpha particles were deflected from its normal path, he come to the conclusion. Now alpha particles being positively charged, these alpha particles on passing through this metal foil from this particular point, they are found to deflect at certain angle theta. So this deflection is only possible when we have a positively charged part inside an atom. So why? Because same charges undergo repulsion. So these alpha particles being positively charged, there must be a positively charged point, a part inside the atom, and he says that positively charged part which is present inside the atom is defined as the nucleus, and this nucleus, the positively charged, is because of the presence of a particle known as proton. So after the discovery of proton, he says that these protons must be placed inside the atom, and that particular point or the portion in which the protons is being present is placed exactly at the center of atom, and this was coined the term nucleus. So the credit for the discovery of nucleus goes to Rutherford, and he also says if nucleus is placed exactly at the center of atom, and inside this nucleus we have the positively charged particles known as the protons. So the inference from this second observation is there is a positively charged part inside an atom which is called nucleus. There is a positively charged part inside an atom which is called nucleus, and it is placed exactly at the center of atom. So this positively part nucleus is placed exactly at the center of atom, and it contains protons and neutrons. So these are the two fundamental particles which is present inside this nucleus. So deflection is due to the presence of a positive part inside the atom. This positive part is placed exactly at the center of atom, and inside this positive part we have protons and neutrons. Neutrons are uncharged, protons being positive, so this nucleus is positively charged, and because of this, these alpha particles were found to deflect from its normal pathway. Now from this he says the radius of atom, if the radius of atom is of the order of 10 to the power minus 10 meter, then the radius of nucleus is of the order of 10 to the power minus 15 meters. So we can accept 10 to the power minus 15 meters as an extremely small, which is placed exactly at the center. Then the third observation he made from this alpha scattering experiment is very few alpha particles. So 1 in 20,000 means out of 20,000 alpha particles, one particle were found to deflect by 180 degrees. That is what he calls recoiled alpha particles. So these alpha particles were passing through this metal foil. After reaching certain point, this is found to recoil its path. That means if suppose this is going this way, exactly after reaching point this is coming backward. So now look at this. This is recoil alpha particles. जिस डायरेक्शन से मूव किया था सिर्फ उसी डायरेक्शन से फिर वापस आ रहे. So the third one is very few alpha particles were found to recoil its path. Then he says very few alpha particles were found to deflect its path. So this could be the meaning of this thing, like this centrally placed nucleus must be highly rigid. So since this nucleus being highly rigid, when these alpha particles approach this nucleus, this alpha particle cannot strike there. So because of this recoil its particle. So the rigidity of this nucleus says that the volume occupied by the nucleus is extremely small, and the entire mass of atom is concentrated inside this atom. Whereas the earlier theory says mass was uniformly distributed, but this experiment says since very few alpha particles were found to recoil each path, this could be due to the reason of this nucleus being highly rigid, and the possibility is the entire mass of atom is concentrated inside this highly rigid centrally placed nucleus. So the third observation is if very few alpha particles recoil its path, is deflected by 180 degree. Deflection by 180 degree. So this is the one. So from this he conclude, the conclusion drawn from this is the nucleus is highly rigid. Nucleus is highly rigid and the entire mass of atom is concentrated inside nucleus. So these are the main observation and the inference or the conclusion drawn from the observation. So this is the Rutherford's alpha scattering experiment. So main point that we have to keep in mind is what is alpha particle, why we use heavier particles, why cannot we use lighter particles. Second, what is the use of zinc sulfide, that is being quoted on the screen. Then what are the observation and the inference. So after this observation and inference, he come to the conclusion or he proposed a model of atom which says every atom consists of a positively charged nucleus. This positively charged nucleus is placed exactly at the center of atom where the protons and neutrons are present, and the entire mass of the atom is concentrated inside this atom. Now this nucleus being positively charged, there are electrons which is negatively charged surrounding this nucleus in a circular orbit. The number of positive charge and the number of negative charge surrounding this nucleus should be exactly equal for a neutral atom, and this number of positive charge and the number of negative charge being identical, electron is moving around this nucleus in circular orbit, then there must be some balancing force between this attractive force and the other force, that is centrifugal force and centripetal force. So after this he says that the atomic number so he defined some terms known as atomic number. So atomic number of a neutral atom, this is defined by this symbol J. So this equals to number of protons inside the nucleus. Since the number of positive charge is equals to number of negative charge, so this for a neutral atom is equals to number of electrons. So atomic number is number of protons which is equals to number of electrons. Then atomic mass, or known as mass number. This mass number is defined by this symbol A. So this mass number A is equals to number of protons plus number of neutrons. So total number of protons plus neutrons present inside the nucleus is known as mass number or atomic mass. This number of protons and number of neutrons which is present inside the nucleus is also known as nucleons. So the total number of nucleons means protons and neutrons present inside the nucleus is defined as atomic mass. So therefore look at this A is equals to proton, number of proton is equals to atomic number, so we can write down this J plus N. So once we can easily define how many neutrons are being present inside the nucleus. So let's take, and using this, the element, symbol of an element is defined as this. Suppose this is X an element, then below this we have J, this represents atomic number, then we have this mass number. So look at this example. Suppose we have carbon. So now look at this 6 represents Z, that is atomic number, and this 12 represents A, which is equals to proton plus neutron. So this Z equals to number of, because this being neutral, we have proton is equals to electron. So therefore in this, so the number of neutron is A minus Z. A is 12 minus 6, so we have 6 proton is being present. So this is for a neutral atom. So similarly, look at it, let's take this example. Iron 26. So now look at this represents Z, so number of protons is 26. This is A, which is equals to proton plus neutron. So therefore number of neutron is 56 minus 26, we have 30 neutrons. So this is for neutral. Now coming to the ions, let's see. We have look at this O2 minus. Now O2 minus, this is the atomic number. So this atomic number is equals to number of protons. Now look at this, total number of protons present inside the nucleus is 8. So this will not be equal to number of electrons, because this is a positive charge, this is a charged species. Now for a neutral atom, look at this, number of electrons should be 8, but since we are having 2 negative, means there is some excess of electrons, so the number of electron is 8 plus 2. So atomic number plus the charge carried by the species, negative charge. So this gives you the total number of electrons. So number of proton is 8, but the number of electron is 10. Mass number will not change because mass number will remain as it is. Then look at this, similarly take this magnesium plus 2. So Z is 12 is equals to number of protons. So now look at this, we have 2 positive charge. So the positive charge is due to the removal of electrons. So therefore in this case, the number of electrons will be, initially this was found to have 12 in the neutral atom. Now after removal of 2 electrons, we have 2 positive, so 2 minus. So this gives you 10 electron. So this is how we define the number of electrons, protons and the neutrons. The number of neutrons will remain as it is. This is 16, this is 24. So 24 means E is equals to Z plus neutron. So number of neutron is 24 minus 12. So still we have 12 neutrons. In this case same. Number of neutron is 16 minus S, that is 8 neutrons. So by use of this we can easily calculate the number of protons, neutrons, electrons. If the number of electrons are same, then this is known as isoelectronic. Isoelectronic means same number of electrons. Ions or the species having same number of electrons. Take this N3 minus, nitrogen atomic number 7, 7 plus 3, 10. Then look at this O2 minus, then we have F minus, then we have neon 10. We can also have, look at this, sodium plus 11 minus 1. We can have magnesium 2 plus, then we can have aluminium 3 plus. Now all these having 10 electrons, so these are known as isoelectronic. If the number of electrons same, we say this is isoelectron. Any species having same number of electrons is known as isoelectronic species. Then we can also define isobars and isotopes. Isotopes are the one having same number of same atomic number but different mass number. So if the number of atomic number is same, so number of protons will always be same, but mass number being different, the number of neutrons will be different. So look at this, we have isotopes, same atomic number, that means Z is same or number of protons same but different mass number. So since mass number is different, so this is due to different neutrons. So we can say isotopes are species having same atomic number but different neutrons also, or different mass number. Take this example. You have this carbon 12, carbon 13, carbon 14. If you look at this, atomic number is equals to proton, which is equals to electron. So this is 6, 6, 6. Number of neutrons here, 12 minus 6, 6. 13 minus 6, 7. 14 minus 6, 8. So now look at this, mass numbers are different. Mass number is due to difference in neutrons. So this is what we call as isotopes. Then we have isobars. So these are the one having same mass number but different atomic number. Same mass number but different atomic numbers. So atomic numbers being different means number of protons will be different. So take this example, carbon 6, 14, nitrogen 7, 14. So now look at this, number of neutrons in this case is 14 minus 6, 8, 14 minus 7, 7. Number of electrons is 6, 7. Number of protons is 6, 7. So now look at this, we have mass number being identical, atomic numbers are different. So this comes under isobar. So for any given element, if the symbol is given to you or if the number of electron, proton, neutrons are given known to you, we can easily define a symbol also. So though we have this Rutherford model which for the first time depicts the concrete idea about the internal structure of the atom, but this theory also has got some disadvantages. So let's say the disadvantage or the drawbacks. Disadvantages or the drawbacks of this theory. One of the most important drawback of this theory is, though he says we have a nucleus which is positively charged, around this nucleus electrons are moving in circular orbit. So this theory does not say anything about the electronic rearrangement, how these electrons are arranged. So the arrangement or the distribution of electron is not being defined here. Distribution or arrangement of electron is not defined. So we cannot define how these electrons are being arranged inside this atom around this nucleus. So simply saying that electrons are moving around the nucleus, this is not sufficient, because if only one electron is present, okay, that's fine. But there are many elements which contains more than one electron. So if you have more than one electron, so how this electron should be placed in different circular orbits? So exact distribution, that is known as electronic configuration or electronic distribution of this is not defined by this theory. Then the second demerit of this theory is, while we discuss this theory does not match with classical electromagnetic theory. Classical electromagnetic theory says a charged particle, any charged particle which is moving around a oppositely charged field, any charged particle moving around an oppositely charged field should always emit energy continuously. So if this electron moving around this nucleus, electron is negatively charged, proton is positively charged, so nucleus electron is moving in the field of nucleus. So this electron at each and every turn must emit energy continuously. So if electron is releasing energy continuously, after certain period of time this electron will collapse into the nucleus. That means this theory cannot predict the stability of the atom. Stability of atom cannot be explained. So now look at this. According to classical electromagnetic theory, every charged particle moving in an oppositely charged field emits energy continuously. So same must be applicable to electrons. So look at this. Suppose this is nucleus, around this electron is moving in. So electron up at each and every turn, energy being released. So ultimately this electron. So now look at this. This is electron. So electron is moving in the field of nucleus. So at each and every turn, energy being released. So this तो धीरे धीरे एनर्जी रिलीज करते गया, तो सर्कुलर ऑर्बिट कम होते गया, तो अल्टीमेट इलेक्ट्रॉन किसके पास चला जाएगा? न्यूक्लियस के पास चला जाएगा. तो एक्सपेरिमेंट शोज टाइम रिक्वायर्ड फॉर दिस इज 10⁻⁸. सो विद इन 10⁻⁸ सेकेंड्स में ही इलेक्ट्रॉन न्यूक्लियस में कोलैप्स कर जाएगा. जब इलेक्ट्रॉन न्यूक्लियस में कोलैप्स कर जाएगा तो ऑब्वियसली इलेक्ट्रॉन एटम से नहीं रहेगा. तो इसका मतलब स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ एटम कुड बी फॉर ओनली फॉर 10⁻⁸ सेकेंड, व्हिच इज नॉट एक्सेप्टेबल. तो इसका मतलब ये एनर्जी यहां से गया, एनर्जी रिलीज कर देगा, सर्कुलर ऑर्बिट कम होती गया, एनर्जी चला गया. तो स्टेबिलिटी ऑफ द एटम कैन नॉट बी एक्सप्लेन. द थर्ड डिमेरिट of this theory is, now look at this, says energy is emitting energy continuously. अब एनर्जी अगर कंटिन्यूसली इमिट करेंगे तो जो आपके पास जो स्पेक्ट्रम होगा, that spectrum should also be continuous. That means सभी एनर्जी इस तरह से ओवरलैप करेंगे. द स्पेक्ट्रम, एटॉमिक स्पेक्ट्रम, जो हम लोग बाद में डिस्कस करेंगे. तो द एटॉमिक स्पेक्ट्रम as predicted by this Rutherford theory should be continuous. But the actual spectrum of atom, which we are going to study in later part of this chapter, the actual experimental spectrum of every atom is found to have discrete lines. Discrete lines means distinct lines, each line representing a particular energy or frequency. So the actual is having some discrete lines, but this is predicting a continuous. So the experimental value and the theoretical value does not match again here. Actual spectrum, actual atomic spectra is found to have discrete or distinct lines, but the predicted from Rutherford's theory is continuous. So Rutherford theory says the spectra of atoms should be continuous because at each and every turn energy is continuously emitting, means there must be overlapping of the different lines, whereas the actual atomic spectra is found to have discrete, distinct, clear lines. So the actual spectra and the spectra as predicted from this Rutherford model does not match. So these are the three major important demerits of this Rutherford theory. Apart from these demerits, the basic structure of this atom is still relevant to this Rutherford theory. So this is a brief idea or a brief discussion about this Rutherford theory.